They'd say, I'm 8% body fat, bro. And I'd be like, no, you're not.
So many people put stock into body fat percentage.
That's why BMI is such a horrible metric. Is body fat a good scale to gauge progress?
Yeah, I know a lot of people are still to this day really obsessed with body fat percentage, and a lot of people have different numbers in mind that they want to get to. And what I like is that oftentimes when I'm talking to people with their goals, it's kind of switched over from like body fat percentage to just wanting to lose fat, wanting to gain muscle, which I think is something very easy to accomplish with the right plan. And so I wanted to use myself as an example just to paint the picture, to give you some more understanding as to my thought process, what works for myself and also my clients. So recently I was about 180 pounds. This was a couple months ago, and I wanted to decrease my body fat percentage. I wanted to be leaner. I wanted to feel leaner. I wanted to look leaner. I wanted to be more confident. And so I started to pay attention to the scale. Now, every day I would weigh in, I would calculate the average, and I would make sure the average was going down. If not, I would adjust my calories and make sure it's going down. But between that, the monthly progress photos, as well as my monthly measurements, I needed to make sure that all three of these things were moving in the right direction. I needed to make sure I was maintaining my upper body mass as well when I did my measurements, but I also needed to make sure I was losing fat in the right areas when I did my photos. Now, based off of all of this stuff, in order to lose my body fat percentage and just to get to where I want to be, the scale had to reach a certain point that I wanted to get to. It had to go to about 165, and I knew that that would be the exact sweet spot. And so everything came together. I was super happy with. And the thing is, I didn't exactly think about what body fat percentage I was. I wasn't exactly just paying attention to that. And it was more so, hey, I want to look a certain way. I want to feel a certain way. And I wanted to start to see some different striations come in, some veins and all that stuff. And that was what I was striving for. Now, the biggest thing is that so many people put stock into body fat percentage, but they don't have accurate data to keep track of body fat percentage. It's been proven over again and over again. A lot of scales, and even recently there's this scale called the Hume scale that a lot of people are doing reviews on, and it's not accurately tracking your body fat percentage, but it's just shooting out a bunch of different numbers. Like, a lot of influencers won't even touch it, even though they're going to get paid a lot of money for it, because it's just not exactly accurate. And so that's where I think it's very, very challenging for a lot of people, because they have inaccurate numbers that are being shot out at them, and then it's kind of messing with their brain of like, oh, well, it went up this day and up, down that day, and they're putting too much stock into it. What I will say though is, if you have a tool and something that you can use that's accurate to keep track of your body fat percentage, it can be amazing. And so for us, every 6 months or so, we go to get a DEXA scan, which is tried and true. It is the gold standard for keeping track of a lot of data, but the body fat percentage is essentially accurate. So I know that if the last time I was about, I think it was, let's say 13 or 14% body fat, whatever that number is next time around, it's going to be pretty accurate, and it will tell me a lot of data of like, did everything I do, did it work or did it not work? Did I make the right changes? And what can I do going forward? But most people, like I said, they don't have these types of tools. And that's where it gets a little bit challenging, is they're using like their gym scale at 10 a.m. on a random Monday. And like every few months they're stepping on it and holding the calipers, and it's just shooting all this random data to them. So that's where I don't really pay as much attention to it, because if I can see the photos, the measurements, the scales, the strength, and all that stuff, I can get a lot of information, and I know if you're progressing or not based off of the body fat percentage goals that you have.
And I loved Kyle's response. Him and I joke, because oftentimes we'll say to each other's response, I love that, but I think he absolutely nailed it there. And for me, body fat is one of those things, like, it's like almost a pet peeve of mine when people talk to me about it. I'm like, oh, here we go. It's starting. And I'm sorry to let anyone down with that. Like, it is amazing. In theory, body fat, like Kyle said, it's ultimately what we want. I want to hold more muscle, have less fat, and I want to be shredded. I want to be ripped. My problem is, like, this number is so hard to accurately say what it is. And I've used this example before. If I paint a picture for you and I say, hey, there's a woman who's one of my clients and she's 200 pounds. Immediately, you're going to think, okay, like, she probably looks a certain way. Maybe she's overweight, whatever. This woman could be absolutely shredded, 6-pack abs, insanely strong, and just tall, right? Like, the number doesn't mean anything. And I've said this before, like, let's say I'm 300 pounds, right? And I say 300-pound man, you might have an image just the same. This dude's like 6'8", he's a monster, he plays football, he's a beast. Like, no one cares about your weight. They care about how you look, right? And body fat's very much the same. Like I'll hear people, and like this used to drive me nuts. They'd say, I'm 8% body fat, bro. And I'd be like, no, you're not. Like there's just no chance. Like you have no visible ab definition. There's no striations. Like this number makes you feel good, but it's a false positive. And just the same, like we have a friend who holds his fat well visually, okay? Like it looks good, but every time he does a test, he's like almost obese. Like it's a wake-up call, right? Because just because you hold fat a little bit better and it visually looks good doesn't mean you're low fat, right? And that's where this number in theory is amazing. Like, and even that's why I like a DEXA, because it is a good tangible way for me to gauge my progress. But even a DEXA can be heavily manipulated. You can drink a ton of water and it will gauge the water as muscle, and it will report you as being with a higher muscle base and a lower body fat, which is going to screw your numbers entirely. And the same, like as you go down to bod pod, I would say it's DEXA, then bod pod. It's still a little more high quality, can run into the same issues. And then from there, you can go to calipers, which you could grab more fat or less fat. And then the worst of all is scales, which use calculations. So just the same, if there's a 300-pound male and he gets on that scale, it's going to tell him he's obese every time. That's why BMI is such a horrible metric. It doesn't take into indication muscle, right? It just takes your height, your weight, and what you should be. And if you're someone who's extraordinarily lean, you're ripped to the gills, you got veins on your abs have abs, like it's going to put you as high. It's going to say you're overweight. It's going to say you're 20% body fat. So I've done DEXA scans, which once again is the gold standard, where I've been like 11, 12%. And if I hop on one of those scales, I'll be 20%. It'll say I'm 20% body fat. Like it's so incorrect. And then you could say, oh, like, but what are you actually? And then you can use visual tests, right? And we could look at Kyle's shoulders and say, okay, this guy's probably 4% body fat, which he isn't, but that's just where he doesn't hold fat. And for me, I could have leaner abs, but thicker shoulders. Like, so there's so many variables here, and that's where ultimately the best scale is you. And all of these things are tools. You'll know when you're lean, right? And a good metric too is like, how much ab definition do you have? Do you have the top two, the four, all six? Are you seeing veins on your abs? Are you seeing more vascularity throughout your body, more striations? Is there less visible holdable fat? Same with weight. Like I said, weight is a good skill, but it's not like a be all end all. It matters where you're at. And that's why progress photos are number one to me. Like that is the best indication. Are you indeed actually progressing? Then scale is a pretty easy one to really hold true. But body fat can be good. So even I've had scales that have told me I'm 20, and as I lose weight, naturally that number will go down, and it can be inconsistently consistent to that metric, and that can be a positive there. So that's where, like, as a whole, I'm not a huge fan of it, because people will tell me they want to get to a certain number, and it's like, for me to get to, like, let's say 10% body fat on one of those home scales, I would need to lose so much of my muscle and lose so much weight. It just would never happen. It would kind of be like a silly goal for me to work towards, because I would net have a worse physique. So that's where, like, body fat is such a catch-all. And it's really fun to say you're these crazy low body fat percentages, but like, realistically, no one cares. If you look good, you look good. Maybe someone will say, what body fat are you? And you say, I don't know, or I think I'm this. And I've even told people when I've been very lean, like, oh, like I'm 11 on a DEXA, and they're like, no, you're 5 or 4. And it's like, okay, if I was 4, I'd look like I'm half dead probably. Like I would have like barely a shred of fat on my body. So that's where this one is so nuanced, and like, I understand the appeal and desire to look good and to be in a healthy body fat range. But even like as a coach, like that's something I can coach my clients on. I'll say, okay, what do the numbers say? This is about where I'd put you at. And the reality is we'll never perfectly know. Like, unless we uniformly say this is the best absolute metric for body fat, which I suppose we could say is DEXA, and we're doing everything correctly, we're not having water, like that would be your most consistent metric. If you have a bod pod to the gym, that's still pretty awesome, and you can get access to that every 3 months. It's like another position of data you can use on top of your measurements, on top of your photos, on top of all these things, which can also be manipulated, but they'll paint a total picture of, am I indeed going in the right direction?
And that's where even myself, I've kind of changed my thinking. Like if you were to talk to me 10 plus years ago, I might have been that bro who's just like, I want to be sub 10% body fat, bro. But now I'm just like, if I want to do a cut, I'm like, hey, I need to lose 10 pounds and I want to get leaner. Like you kind of see, like I'm not exactly referencing body fat. I kind of am like, hey, I'm going to lose fat, but it's not just like body fat percentage, because once again, you don't want to become too fixated with it. Like you just want to get leaner. And if I get down towards losing 10 pounds and I'm on the proper strength training program and eat my protein and stuff, I'll 100% get there. And that's where having the right plan, it just makes it so much easier. Like I know when I'm helping someone and their goal is to lose 15, 20 pounds, I know with the right calories I set for them, the right strength training, the right amount of cardio, 100% chance we will get the right numbers in terms of losing the right amount of fat, keeping on the right amount of muscle. And it comes down to the process. It comes down to having the right approach. And that is what really makes a big difference. But the last thing I'll say is I just think looking in the mirror and just getting a little uncomfortable and just staring at yourself and seeing, how do I look? How do I feel? Like, how does this make me feel is just the greatest measurement tool ever, right? And even myself, if I do that, if I'm 180, mid 180s, I'm probably not going to feel that great. I'm going to feel a little bit insecure. I'll probably put on a little bit too much weight and I'm not going to feel as great. And so I think when it comes down to your overall kind of keeping track of your progress, when you're able to just take a good hard look at yourself in the mirror and just see, how am I visually looking? Like everybody wants to look better. Everyone wants to just improve their composition. Like if someone's listening to this and they don't, they're probably just not telling the truth. So that's where it is just such a great tool. And that's why every single month our clients send us progress photos. They send us a front photo, a side photo, a back photo. And this gives us so much good information as to how they're progressing. And we even put them side by side to see what exactly is taking place. And it's just such a great measurement tool. So I highly recommend, don't shy away from doing this stuff. A lot of people will be so obsessed with other tools, but they'll never even set up to get a proper photo and they're never able to see their actual progress they're making. And this makes a really big difference on your journey.
Yeah, and I don't hate body fat. It has its purpose. And even in the spreadsheet where I have my clients track their measurements, I have a section for body fat if they want to put it, if they have a scale or some other metric. Like the more data, the better, because it'll paint a more total picture. I just think body fat is overly simplistic. And as you can see, there's more nuance behind it. And that's where I just don't love it, because also just the same, if your goal is just to bring body fat down, like I said, it doesn't encompass, are you putting on muscle? Are you actively improving your physique, your composition, which is very much a gauge. Like when you hear 8% body fat, you just think of being ripped and looking amazing and all this. But it's like, are you 8% body fat because you're starving and skinny, or are you 8% body fat because you've leaned out, you have a good base of muscle? So there's more to it in terms of compositional goals. And that's where I would actually rather someone say, I want visible abs. I want to remove my back dimples. I want whatever it is. Like that's more of an actionable goal to me. And even though it's theoretically more vague, I find it's more achievable and it's more obvious. And what's nice too is there are certain markers, like when you, like, it's kind of a joke in the bodybuilding community, when you get really lean, you'll get like striations, like feathering. You'll see your muscle feathering on your glutes, which is like absurdly lean, because glutes are where you should be holding a lot of your fat. But there are markers, right? And abs are such a good indication of that. As you get leaner, you'll see more and more definition on your abs. You'll see more veins. There's like certain tells that are cool. And like, that's where as a coach, I can help people with this more. But like, if you have a scale and you're seeing it continually going down, you got a ton of fat to lose and you already have like a good muscle base, like, sure, that could be an extra thing, but that's where, like, I think people put it as number one when it shouldn't be. So I think that was an awesome question. Hopefully you appreciated that answer.